So it's Danny Flexon here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined by my good friend and top trainer in Peter Fury. Peter, how are you, mate?
I'm good, Danny. Not too bad, mate. Thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, very good, thanks. Not in the south of France like you. The weather, as I was saying off camera, is just starting to turn here in the UK. So I'm a bit envious, but we do what we do. But yeah, I wanted to speak to you. Obviously, we went back and forth after I saw some of your posts on Twitter, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But first of
Yeah.
all, I know your son Huey, his return has been delayed a little bit. Just wanted to ask you about that first of all.
Nothing really. Just want to get him 100% rather than 70, 80%. So there's no rush. So looking to make he'll be back early next year, whenever when the fights kick up again, really.
All right, well, that's good to hear. Yeah, so some of the posts on Twitter, there seems to be a bit of a pattern of frustration. I think it's fair to say that perhaps some of the biggest fights aren't happening in traditional boxing at the moment. And we're going to talk about how that has left the door open a little bit for some more of these crossover fights and YouTube fights. But first of all, what do you think are the main reasons why these biggest fights, especially in the UK, aren't happening currently?
Well, there can be a number of reasons. Obviously, there's money involved. Promoters, they want to keep the fighter a world champion as long as possible. Because it's a business. They get longevity out of it. Um, there's risk reward coming into it. The fighters has got to make as much money as they can. And they're gonna take whatever route is available to them. But what that's also well and good for the fighter, looking out for their interest, and the promoters doing his thing and earning money because it's a business. But at the same rule, it's a bit of a double-edged sword because it's killing the sport, because fights ain't happening. And that's because of a multitude of these reasons, whether they're protecting the fighter, don't want to take a chance on it. It can be a number of these things, but ultimately it's all financial. So this is the problem. So when things go stale and you've got the same old shit, you see interviews, it's all smack talk rather than fighting and stuff. It's anything to get clickbait. And the thing is as well, the boxing fans, a lot of them are going off it because they're going to hear bullshit. They might as well hear it from YouTubers and stuff, because at least they talk good bullshit. So basically, this is the reason, and this is why people are turning towards the sport, and this is what opens the doors for like YouTubers to come in, this and that. So because ultimately the real fights ain't happening, so the fans are going to go wherever they can go to get a bit of excitement. It's a bit like WWE, it's that's what's coming and interfering with boxing, and it's their own fault because a lot of it is greed, and fighters don't want to get wet because they want limited risk, high reward for what they do. So and that is what it is. It will be a breath of fresh air. And I'm not saying about all fighters, because some fighters, they're happy to fight anybody, but the majority, it seems to be going in this direction, and I think this is why people are frustrated with it, because ultimately the fans pay the bills, and they need to get behind the fighters, and they are a very good support in boxing. But it is waning because of all the bullshit you see. You never seen this in the 90s. You never seen it in the 80s, 70s, 60s. It's this modern era where, shit floats. And people will listen to shit. It's rubbish. A lot of stuff I see is cringe bullshit. That's what it is. So I don't look at it. And if I see it, obviously when you go on these Instagrams and you see various interviews, as soon as I know who they are and what they are, I'm not mentioning any names, I don't even go on the audio. I just skip past. I just scroll past. I can't be bothered with it. It's all nonsense.
As you alluded to there, it does seem to be a more recent problem, especially in the UK, because we've just seen Terence Crawford and Errol Spence fight in the US. That's a huge fight, and we're all happy to see that. But in the UK, I think you're right that a lot of those big fights aren't happening. And it seems like at the moment,
Even in the US, We had Crawford Spence, cracking fight, but how regular do we see them?
Yeah, it's true.
Do you know what I mean? You don't. So, and look what Crawford said. All these guys, he wanted to fight him, and they turned him down. Now it's come to his turn, rightly so. He doesn't want to fight. He doesn't want to fight them because they never give him the opportunity. So this is what you get. It's, I think everybody, including promoters and everybody involved in boxing, need to get down to reality and let the fighters fight. And there's money anyway. There's money anyway. There's plenty of money. You need to just get on and get the job done.
I think one of the issues here in the UK, especially recently, is that there's a lot more TV broadcasters and TV promoters than there used to be. In the old days, it might have just been Mickey Duff and Frank Warren fighting each other, or then Warren and Matchroom later on. Now you've got 4 or 5 promoters, all with TV contracts in the UK, all trying to keep their fighters on one TV channel. And they're not crossing over and fighting each other. We don't see that very often anymore. Would you kind of go along with that?
I think having a good few promoters is probably a good thing because you're not leaving it the odd few to monopolize it. But a lot of these promoters don't get on with the other promoters.
Yeah,
so them fighters seldomly fight. So there is all these issues. All what can I say about it? When you see the interviews, some of the interviewers, I'm not naming, I'm not calling them, but it's like a broken record. We've got like a little click like this, yeah, and it seems that's it. There's nothing else, and it's like it reminds me of a school playground where you've got this class, this over in the corner here where these are all mates, and you got a few outsiders over here that nobody's interested in. It's like that, like an old boys club, really.
So what are the solutions? I mean, I know I'm not expecting you to cure everything in one interview here, but what are the kind of steps we can start to make to improve the situation, to see more of those not crossover fights, that's what we don't want, but more of the fighters from different promoters clashing?
Yeah, I think, look, they need to put all differences to one side and, get the fighters on and let them fight. Because ultimately it's going to be good for boxing and it'll be good for promoters in the end because they'll get a lot more views. It's all about views at the end of the day, isn't it? So, if they can bring boxing back and put really exciting fights on, then, boxing will take off. But, it's only because boxing's gone like this, where you've got likes of all these other people, coming in, and you've got all this going on, where, somebody can talk a lot and say, I can be a good fighter like them, and people buy into it. It's only because the real boxing's gone stale. They're not seeing enough of fights.
Do you think there is ever any instances of promoters looking at the greater good of boxing, making boxing better for the fans and so on? Because it is a business, as you said, they're all trying to make money for themselves. Do you think they ever have that in the back of their mind? How can we make the sport itself better?
Well, I don't know. They need to really look at it. And I'm not a promoter, so I'm only looking at the outside as a fan would look at it. Yeah, they should think of it because in the long run, it's going to be better for boxing. Yeah, and there's still plenty of money. Big fights make a lot of money, don't they?
Yeah, I completely agree. And you mentioned the kind of opening the door for the YouTubers coming in. Do you think there's a worry, especially among casual fans? You're obviously a boxing man. I'm a hardcore boxing fan, I'd like to think. But among the casual fans, that the YouTubers are as good as boxers because that's what they're presented with.
Well, exactly, but they're not, are they? I think everything needs to be put in a box. You've got real boxing and you've got misfit boxing, yeah? And that's where all they need to fit in that box, yeah? Because you can't put fighters like, I'm not being disrespectful to YouTubers or anybody, yeah? They've got a job to do and they're trying to do it and they're loving other sport. Like I get people come in the gym, they want to help out. They're happy to sweep up the floor, and then they leave and they become trainers. They've just got over enthusiastic or whatever. That's their thing, isn't it? So there's a box for them, isn't they? Like in a letterbox, boxing, parcels go there, junk mail go in that box. Well, that's all junk mail to me. So that needs to fit in a box. So it's not real boxing. So the thing is, getting back to world level boxing, that's what we want to see. And that's it. There's a sport for them, and there's a sport for real boxing. It doesn't need to get mixed up.
I guess it's kind of hard to blame the boxers themselves for fighting some of these YouTubers. Obviously, Tommy fought Jake Paul. He's now fighting KSI because the money they can make is so much more than they'd make at the level they're at in boxing. If Tommy was to fight even for the British title now, it would be a minuscule comparison to what he's going to make against KSI and what he made against Jake Paul. So can you sympathise with the fighters for making these huge purses?
Yeah, look, if somebody said to me about my son, go and fight that YouTuber and get 10 million, say sign it up, you fight him tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that's not what I'm saying. The basic issue is that needs to stay in one area. Let's get down to the proper boxing. We're not seeing the proper fights we want to see. That's where we want to be at.
And do you think if we were seeing those big fights, particularly here in the UK, do you think the misfit side and the crossover side would diminish? Do you think it'd, get less attention?
I don't know, but I don't think so. I think there's a room for everything. There's a different kind of fan base. That can keep going. Why not? But I'm the same as you. I'm interested in proper boxing matches, so I'm not really interested in that, and I don't watch it, to be honest.
Can you pick some fights out that you would like to see? Because obviously the frustration comes from somewhere, fights that we're not seeing. Are there any in particular that you'd like to see?
Not really. I can't pick any names at the moment, but I know we don't see enough of them.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it seems to be centered around the heavyweight division, especially with Anthony Joshua. Deontay Wilder recently fell through, was supposed to be in the Middle East. And I think that's another part of it as well, is that the Middle East seems to be a new power base in boxing. We haven't had that before. I guess it harks back to when Las Vegas first came on the scene. And because there's now different companies over in the Middle East who are competing with each other, they've kind of got the same problem we're now having in the UK, in that we're not seeing Joshua against Wilder. We'll probably see them against separate opponents instead.
I don't know. The best need to fight the best. That's all I can say. I don't know about Saudi. Obviously, fights are happening over there for one reason: money, isn't it? They're obviously blowing everybody else out the water.
Do you think boxers these days care more about the money than they did in the past, compared to title belts, glory, that kind of stuff?
Well, it's a difficult scenario, because if you've got a boxer and you're looking after that boxer and he can get, say, figures out the sky, 10 million.
Sure.
Yeah. All of a sudden you take him to Saudi and he can get 30. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
So, of course, you're gonna go for the highest pay, aren't you?
So it's about kind of making more money available for the fights people actually want to see, so you can have that legacy and money.
I think what it is, Danny, I don't think it's a case about the money. Fighters need to get as much money as they can, so no problem with any of that. I think whatever happens, if the money's there, get it on. If it's not there, take what next level's available. But the main thing is to get the fights on. 20 million, 50 million, whatever it is, the telephone numbers, so you can just get on with it anyway. But fights need to happen, whether they're happening in Saudi, whether they're happening anywhere. If plan A fails, go to plan B, but get the fights happening.
What do you think of a fight that's being talked about at the moment, like Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr.? Because a lot of people would say, from a hardcore perspective, it may not be competitive because of the weight difference. But as a spectacle and in terms of a big fight to bring people in, it's huge because of their fathers and the legacy and so on. So where do you sit on that?
I think if it can happen, yeah, why not? Because it's all these type of fights are exciting to see. So they're good for boxing, so you're going to see them. Nothing wrong with that fight. Both of them are good fighters. It'd be a good fight to see, wouldn't it? So it's a fight that would generate a lot of interest. The same as Eubank Liam Smith has just happened. That created a lot of interest. Everybody's tuning in. These are the type of fights, not just mega world title fights, right across the board, even top domestic fights. We want to see them.
Do you get frustrated then? I mean, it certainly seems that way as we were talking about Twitter and so on. Do you get frustrated each time a new big fight that's talked about loads doesn't happen?
I don't pay a lot of interest in that, to be honest. It's all talk, isn't it? So unless contracts are signed and they say, right, it's on, and there's official release date, so I don't pay any attention to it at all. But in boxing, there's a lot of pretenders out there as well. There's a lot of journeymen. That's on boxing shows. I think they're better than what they are, and they're not. They're just journeymen and the stepping stones. But they talk like the world champions. So there's a lot of this going on as well. You can see that there's a lot of talentless people talking the way to being talented where they're not talented. So, there's a lot of bullshit on social media. Social media generates an army of fucking idiots half the time. That's what can I tell you? That's my opinion on it.
No, I think you're probably right. But the flip side of that is you are incredibly popular now on social media, particularly on Twitter. Do you see kind of an irony in that? But social media is responsible for a lot of what we don't like in boxing. But you're like a social media icon now.
I'll tell you what I think. I don't think it's that. I think, I'm speaking from a public's perspective.
Mm.
So people can resonate because it's the truth, isn't it? Am I saying something that's wrong? The truth is the truth. The facts you can't get away from. So I'm a man that speaks the truth and speaks facts. That's it, as I see them.
Would you ever consider going into promoting yourself?
No, to be honest, I'm scaling down with the boxing, and I'm just going to concentrate now on my son properly, Huey, and see where that goes. And when he finishes, that'll be the end of it. And I'll sit back and I'll probably just watch the good fights, and that'll do, Danny. I don't want to be the best. I don't want to be the best trainer in the world. I don't want to stick my chest out. I don't want to do anything. I'm out to achieve good things for the fighters, and I'd like the sport to be a lot better than what it is. And there is some very good fighters out there, some very good fighters, and they need bringing to the spotlight. And fighters need to be kept active as well.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be another issue. We've never had so many promoters, we've never had so many shows, but you still see fighters on the shelf for a year or two at a time.
Yeah, this is it. You do. So, but it depends. It depends why that is. I don't know why it is. Look, Huey's not boxed for 2 years, but there's a reason he's not boxed. He isn't looking up and saying, I'm fighting tomorrow, I'm going to do this and all the smack talk, because he's not fighting, is he? So, he's training away in the background and he'll be coming back next year. So he's out of it as far as I'm concerned at the moment. So there's nothing to say. And there's a lot of fighters that are doing a lot of talking, but there's no fighting going on.
But it's kind of impacted Huey's career, the type of things we've been talking about, more than most, in that often he's had to go away, like when he fought Pulev, for example, and had to take the short end of the purse or had to be the underdog going into fights, purely because he hasn't been given those big fights, maybe because he's not a big talker, for example. Does that frustrate you personally because, he's your fighter?
Not really. He's been brought into fights. You're ready to fight. I'll see how good you are. Get in there. He's a fighter that's not been protected. He's been in there, and that's it. He's won. He's lost. So that's where we are with him. So he's got. Let's see what he does when he's back next year.
Do you think he gets the respect he deserves for being willing to take those fights?
I think real boxing fans, yeah. I think look, he hasn't been boxing because he's had all kinds of, like, I would say, silly issues. Stomach problems, digestive problems, and all this. Not major, and he can box like that. But why box until everything's ironed out and it's fixed? And thankfully, he is now. He's up. He's 100%. So he's just over here with me, and we're just steadily working away and getting his fitness right. So he can start proper sparring in January and then get a fight, and away he goes.
How long are you planning to stay over there for?
I'm here till the 18th of October. I came here, I think, on the 3rd of September. So a couple of months, and then I'm back.
Back to the UK for the cold winter.
Listen, we've got the best Christmases ever. The house is lit up like a Christmas tree. So it'll be. It's always nice to spend Christmas at home anyway.
Good stuff, Peter. I really appreciate your time. I hope this has fit the bill for the type of interviewers you were looking for on Twitter. Hopefully some of the others will take note as well. Having watched this, you'll probably get your phone ringing off the hook now.
Definitely. I don't think I'm Mr. Popular with the Boxing Brigade, do you? But listen, it is what it is. I don't care. Basically, we are where we are. What are you doing over Christmas yourself over this coming months?
Well, I haven't got anything planned yet, but obviously I've got a young son, so you've got Halloween, then you've got fireworks night, then you've got Christmas. It's a kid's paradise, isn't it? So yeah, I look forward to all of that. I used to love it when I was a kid, so yeah, I can't wait.
No, it's right. No problem, Danny. All the very best to you.
And you, Peter, and to your family. I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
And you. Bye-bye.